Well, here we have the Hawkeye Firefly micro FPV camera with its optional transmitter. Hawkeye Firefly are a company that specialise in aerial video technology, and they've certainly packed a lot into this little FPV camera and transmitter. For a start, the whole thing weighs only 10 grams, camera plus transmitter, excluding the antenna. It's capable of on-screen display and can be operated on a wide range of power supplies from 1S through to 6S, so it can be powered from the drone's main battery. And of course it's also small and light enough to go on very lightweight racing drones. Let's take a closer look. Now let me start by saying I do fly quadcopters, I do fly FPV, but mostly I fly with action cameras mounted on a quadcopter. Don't actually race drones or anything like that. And I'm most certainly not the expert on FPV or wiring up the cameras. So you can join me in my adventure when I try and figure out how this goes together. Now, some of the best information actually is on the Banggood website, where they actually show you pictures of how this assembles. I did figure out how this plugs from the transmitter to the camera. Plus there's a link on that page to the English instruction manual, which would have been very helpful, but I didn't see it until after I'd actually put it all together. I did have some knowledge of the colour coding of the wires because I've built a couple of little units before. Connecting everything was in fact very straightforward and pretty obvious, because you've got a two-way connection that goes from the back of the camera here, the blue and black that goes to this control board. It's obvious which way the plugs go up because the pins are offset, and also the lead that goes from the camera to the transmitter. And this one has 4 connections, and it's pretty obvious which way up that plug goes as well. On this you've got red and black, which is obviously for the DC input. It just looked a bit scary when I actually opened those little packets. It will take a wide range of voltages from 1S, that would be nominally 4.2 volts, right through to 6S, which is quite something. I also managed to pop the FPV antenna in, which pushes in, and you have to be very careful because it took a fair bit of force, so I actually made sure I put my fingernail behind that little brass connector there and gently pushed, and it popped in. As far as this goes, it's got a wide range of transmit powers from 25 to 200 milliwatts. Bear in mind that the legal limit in the UK is 25 milliwatts, and in fact I think in most European countries 25 milliwatts. I'm not sure what it is in the US and Canada and so on. But very versatile and capable combination of transmitter and camera. Now you can see on the front of the transmitter you've got a small LED display and a push button, so you can scroll through the channels, and it has the race channels, although I'm not familiar with those. I tend to use 5705. But you've also got this gadget here which plugs in and apparently lets you do stuff in the field. Change loads of different parameters. It's all listed on the PDF instruction manual, which I shall link below. Having said that about the information on the website, I can't actually find out what the field of view of this camera is, but I'm sure it's not super wide. Super wide isn't very suitable for FPV flying. More likely about 090 degrees or something like that. I will try and find out. All in all, a very clever and tiny piece of kit, and not mega expensive. I think the first thing I'm going to do is connect a power source to the DC input here, and I imagine that the DC input feeds the camera and the power for the transmitter actually goes via blue and black to this. Yellow will be the video output. In fact you can see that on the back of the transmitter, and the blue will be the DC input for this. So first thing I plan to do actually is solder a JST onto that, so that I can actually put some power in and see what happens. With a bit of luck I'll get a transmission, be able to change the channel and show you some video output. Right, well here's a female JST and a 1000 milliamp 3S LiPo with a male JST. What I'm going to do is connect this to the power input on the camera, and with some luck I'll get some video output. So watch this space. Now it will be best to solder these connections while it's unplugged, just in case we get some kind of electrostatic spark. And you may have noticed that these come packed in anti-electrostatic bags. So it's obviously important the way you handle these things, because it would be probably quite easy to destroy it by sticking a finger on the circuit board. So you should always handle these things very carefully from the sides. Right, here we go. Well, that's my power lead connected. One quick check of the product page, looking at the photographs to make sure I've got these connections plugged in the right way, and I'm going to risk plugging in the power supply, and with luck, if it doesn't go up in smoke, there should be a display on that little digital LED thing there. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Here we go. What do you know? We have display. I would just strongly say never connect power to a transmitter without an antenna attached, because you will just destroy the board. It's got to have an output to something. Right, the next thing to do is have a figure out how I can select channels. But I suspect it shouldn't be too difficult. By scrolling through these buttons here, I should be able to get a channel that I can transmit to my receiver on. Be back in another 10 seconds. Right, well, A4 is 5705, which is the channel I usually transmit on. So I'm hoping, I'll just get hold of this carefully, I'm going to scroll through, being careful not to touch the board, using a cocktail stick, to 4. Well, that should be A4. I better go and get my FPV receiver. Right, so what I have got, instead of my normal receiver, which has fixed receiver channels, I've got some FPV goggles here, which actually scan for an FPV signal. I'm going to connect that. If you know anything about FPV, you probably know about polarization, and I've no idea what polarization this antenna has, or whether this cloverleaf will actually pick it up, but I think it probably should. So let's see. Oh, I'm straight into it. Perhaps you can't see. I'll find something to point at. Well, there you are. I've actually got the thing working. I'm quite surprised, actually. Hawkeye very kindly sent me this for test, and as I said, I am not an expert on FPV or drone racing. I just do a bit of a dabble, as you'll see on my channel, but mostly action cameras, although I do have a couple of little FPV cameras with transmitters that I've actually built myself. But they've got a camera that's very poor quality and tends to be a very wide angle, which is too wide for FPV flying anyway. Also, as far as range goes, I think they call this a coil-loaded antenna. This antenna should be probably more efficient being coil-loaded and balanced than some of my cloverleafs and things which are home built. Well, I think that pretty much covers wiring up the camera and the transmitter. And as far as this little gadget goes, which is the connection that allows you to change the parameters, quite difficult for me to actually demo that and the on-screen display, but easy enough to operate, and it will allow you to change a huge range of factors, which I'm going to list coming up. And it's a question of either pressing enter or long press on the left and right hand buttons and scrolling through menus. That one says up, down and enter. So scroll through, change the parameters. I did manage to master this control panel. One thing you do have to do if you want to mount this the way they've got it in the illustration on the website with the transmitter on the back, bracket is the other way around. You have to go through settings and actually flip the image so that it's not upside down, but it's pretty straightforward, and it is rather neat like that if you want to mount it on the top of a drone. And of course you don't actually need to leave this attached all the time, only when you want to change something, change one of the parameters in it. I will endeavour to plug it into my TV so that I can actually show you what the output of this little camera looks like on a LCD screen, a TV screen. Well, unfortunately my idea of showing you the image on my TV didn't work because it was the wrong format, but there's quite a decent image here on this 12-volt car reversing colour monitor. Sorry, it's not a very interesting picture, it's just my digital watch. And an even sharper image on my FPV goggles. Plus you'll notice there is already a bit of on-screen display there, as in duration of the transmission and drone battery voltage. Well, I hope you found this useful. There's a lot more information and full spec for the camera and transmitter in the comments below. If you have enjoyed it, there's loads of good stuff on my channel, from quadcopters to RC models to aerial video to paramotoring, paragliding, some sailing, and so on and so on. So if you have found it useful, maybe you'd like to click on subscribe, and I'll hopefully catch you later. Right, cheers for now.